Hello, hello. Let me just check the audio, make sure we are all good. Whoops. Whoops. This should be fine, I think. Should be fine. Whoops. This should be fine, I think. Should be fine. Whoops. This should be fine, I think. Also, that was my Zin container. That was not a grinder. I keep my Zins in the middle thingy. That's why you heard that shit. Do not smoke. All right, anyways. Welcome everybody to another fantastic Whitepill Wednesday. Had a last minute change with the guest. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, couldn't make it, but that's all right. Got plenty of pills to give out nonetheless. Before I even get into this stuff today, I just want to point out, I don't know if anyone's seen this yet, but there's a story today where the CEO in this company in the US got fucking just straight up assassinated in broad daylight. Let me see if I can pull up the video. Is that how you spell assassin? I always forget if it's two S's or not. Yeah, here it is. Holy shit, the guy just... It's like dusk when this happens. Just taking pot shots, and look, there's a woman right here. There's a fucking witness. Right here. Like, there's a witness standing right in full view. This guy just out in, not broad daylight, but this looks like just dawn. And for whatever reason, I mean, look, I'm not a gun aficionado by any means. I am Canadian, okay? Guns are not as big of a culture thing here they are in the States. But it's just, I find it strange that he have to keep reloading the gun with every shot. I would assume the mag would just feed the rounds directly into the chamber, but I guess not. It's just very strange. Like, if you just look at his hands, the way that he's... So he keeps touching that slide. I don't know what that is. But in any case, the dude fucking pops him. And it just walks off. Oh, jogs. Barely jogging. And nobody knows what the fuck just happened. I don't think I feel like the New York Post would probably have the latest take on this, right? Did they get his... Okay, so they didn't get his face. Yeah, he's messed up. The dude rides away on a fucking bike. What the fuck, man? What the hell? Okay, so at 6:44 a.m. Wow, okay, so the city's still just waking up. That's interesting. Okay, that is definitely an assassination plot. The guy had to know where he was in the hotel. Wait, what did he say? Manual cycling? Because he's using subsonic... Oh! Oh, for real? What the fuck is that? Oh, let me look that up. Now I'm actually curious. You got me curious, man. Also, shout out Perplexity. I shield this shit every time I stream, and rightfully so. Easily the best alternative to Google. This thing is fucking amazing. And, man, I don't know if they still have this deal, but I got it for the first trial. You get $5 for the first month, and it's 20 after. Definitely recommend signing up if anyone hasn't yet. Oh, okay. So because the bullet is subsonic, it doesn't generate enough force to cycle the semi-auto. Okay, I see. No. I look, man. Hey, we'll get into some white pill shit soon enough. Don't worry. I just wanted to cover the story. I just found it really interesting. But the white pill isn't the story itself. That this is assassination is besides the point. Which sounds kind of fucked. But look, so this guy, this dude in New York, just happened to be collecting this, like the information on city bike data, at the same time of this this incident here, and sorry, just adjusting the volume a little bit. He was he was already collecting this data, and he just happened to have it on hand, and was able to determine that potentially, right, that the getaway vehicle of this assassin was actually recorded through GPS data, which is kind of fucking nuts. I mean, this guy is just like some dude in New York working on, developing whatever the fuck. Before this, I swear he had like 5K followers, not even. He's been around for 10 years and all of a sudden just pops up into the limelight. I mean, look at this post. It's fucking 60K likes, 12 million views. And apparently it's been community noted. That says that apparently that NYPD says it wasn't the city bike. But regardless, I came across this post today and I was just stunned. And not only did he, the way that he explained it, let me actually look up. Somebody did a video where he actually explained it. Let me see if I can, oh, here it is. Let me just play this for you guys.
Okay, we're good now.
Low tech.
Wait, what just happened?
So there was unfortunately a very sad shooting in Manhattan where the United Healthcare CEO was shot. Seemed like he was targeted. Very, very terrible. But then I was watching the news this morning and the police chief in the news conference said that the assailant fled on a city bike, on an e-bike. Which is like crazy that a criminal would flee on a bike, like especially a city bike. But I've been scraping city bike data for the past few weeks. This is not it right here. This is it right here where, yeah, I can see where every individual bike has been. So I can see, okay, like this, let's see, like right here, bike number like 2164382 entered a dock at 2:03 p.m. and then it exited the dock. Someone else took the bike at 2:13 p.m. At station number 1058, which is Columbus Ave and West 59th Street.
Yeah.
So using all this data, I can see, I checked all the possible 203 rides that an exit the assailant could have fled on, and there were like only 8 rides within the time frame of the shooting. Only one of them was headed northbound through Central Park, so that was, which is what the police said that the guy went through. So I'm like really, really confident that this one ride was where the guy ended up. So he ended up on the Upper East Side. So yeah, I tweeted this. I'm like, oh, this is kind of interesting, and a bunch of people reached out, and like the tweets getting a lot of likes now.
Yeah. Why the fuck do you have this data, Riley?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I like making kind of fun, weird websites that show data in an interesting way, and like I thought it'd be cool to make a site that shows like in real time like all the city bike rides in New York. Because like this isn't data that you can normally get. Like I had to reverse engineer the Lyft app to get this, so it's like data that you really can't get normally.
Wait, what did you do?
So like in the Lyft app, if I like want to go and get a bike, let's say I like click on this stock right here, I can see that, oh, like bike 437,034 is there and like 382,600 is there. This is not public data, but like Lyft does give it in the app. Like it's not easy to get from their like public data APIs, but
yeah, you
can see it in the app. So I reverse engineer this endpoint, and then I set up scripts to like go through and check every minute, every dock in New York. So I've just been sitting on the data. I haven't made the website yet, but I have the data at least. So yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, so this guy fucking like just has this data lying around because he's trying to do some cool shit with it. Definitely got to repost that. And then it turns out that it's not even that he has some kind of access through the API. He has to go through the app itself, create a backend, and route all this data. And now all of a sudden, he has everything. Like that refreshes like every couple of seconds, I would assume, or like every minute. Every single piece of GPS data on which bike traveled where, how long, at what station it was at, which like that's kind of fucking nuts. Like, he just has all this data that's openly accessible by anyone with a Lyft account. And the way that he just organized it made it feasible for something like this to happen. Which I look, like the cops said, apparently it wasn't a city bike, so this data is, it didn't really go the way that he assumed. For a minute there, it looked like he had it. Also, highly recommend that you guys follow the future Adam Curtis B-roll account. For anyone not familiar, Adam Curtis is a British documentarian who has made some incredible pieces. The way that he just weaves stories together and talks about how societies function, how politics plays a role in that, all these cultural, social movements and all that. Just very, very interesting, poignant stuff. And this account is dedicated to videos that, because Adam Curtis uses a lot of stock footage, not stock footage, but like footage of real events in his videos. Like here's the example of the Korean. Oh, look at that fucking masterful arm. Look at that. Oh, the twirl. Get fucking rotated. Get absolutely fucking rotated. That is so weird. The soldier just puts his hands up. Jesus Christ, the guy's decked out in gear. That's nuts. Anyways, this account like posts clips that you would essentially seen in the Curtis documentary. In any case, yeah, just wanted to start that off. Just an interesting event that I saw today. That you never know. You never know. There's just some cracked anons out there that are ready to go with fucking sheets and sheets and sheets on data, just ready to organize it all and expose some shit. Just some funny stuff I saw. In any case, let's get into today's topic, which fucking DEI, man. This has been a long time coming. It's a very difficult thing to kind of ground in a handful of words, because the idea of DEI stretches out into so many different areas of history and culture and society and politics. It's all encompassing. But the story that caught my eye, that kind of started this direction towards researching it, was one where Walmart, the single largest private employer in the United States, announced that they would actually be rolling back their DEI initiatives. This is on November 25th, so not even a week ago, I don't think. Yeah, not even a week ago. This is major news because this signals a direct shift of ideology, economic sense, what have you, use whatever justification you want. But this is a shift nonetheless that indicates that like it's not just Walmart either, because Walmart is just a part of, let's see here, Molson Coors, Ford Motors, John Deere, Lowe's, Harley Davidson, Brown Forman, they're the ones that make Jack Daniels, and Toyota, who all within the last year or so, right, all these companies here have announced that they are abandoning these initiatives for one reason or another. Some of them have, come out and said that it's too much political hassle for them. They don't want to deal with the backlash. Other companies have straight out, come out and said, we do not believe in this ideology. We don't want it to spread. And so as a result, a lot of these companies have decided to abandon these initiatives. The reason that this matters is because of the sheer impact that these companies have on not only the market, but the daily lives of people. I mean, just looking at these stats here, in terms of the market share of their respective markets, John Deere owns, or at least according to this search here, half of the entire farming industry vehicle and infrastructure market, right? Lowe's owns 20%, Harley Davidson 75%, so on and so forth. And these are the markets in the US, keep in mind, it's not the global market, because DEI is not, like as an idea, it's not specific to a certain location. It's an idea, and ideas tend to spread overseas. In any case, just looking at the billion-dollar valuations too will give you a sense of just how significant it is that these companies are moving away from these initiatives. And these are just the ones that I've mentioned here. There's plenty of others that I'm sure are either doing it quietly or not making any announcements or on their way to be doing something like this, a kind of departure from DEI. But this is pretty big news that kind of went under the radar, because what this signals is a cultural shift, most likely because of the results of the U.S. election, or at least I would assume that some of that had to play a role in their justification for this, because the Trump admin is not exactly DEI friendly. I'm pretty sure they've actually already actively come out and said that they will act against DEI initiatives. Let me see if I can actually look some of this up. Let's see. So they're eradicating public and private DEI policies, or at least making the promise to. And they intend to use federal funding as leverage to pressure all these institutions into abandoning the programs. Okay, so yeah, I was basically right in that assumption, which doesn't surprise me. I mean, that's a large part of Trump's appeal. In any case, right, whatever the reason is for Walmart, whatever was the straw that broke the camel's back, it's about time. It's about time that this happened, because for those unfamiliar, and I would be surprised if you weren't, but DEI is this idea that came about. There's not really like a single person that you can kind of drag it to. There's not really a single person you can isolate it to. It's just something that came as a culmination of various ideas. But the skinny of it, right, is that it stands for these three things: diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's the idea that all people should have equal rights and treatment and be welcomed and included, so that they do not experience any disadvantage because of belonging to a particular group, and that each person should be given the same opportunities as others according to their needs, so on and so forth. Now, that's something that's very difficult to argue against without sounding bigoted. Like, how could you not be an advocate for everyone to be treated fairly? How could you not be an advocate for recognizing the backgrounds of people and their experiences, right? Like, it's not an easy thing to come out and say that I'm against diversity, or I'm against equity, and I'm against inclusion. At least publicly, in a lot of social circles, especially in urban centers. If you were to talk openly like that, then people give you some strange looks, at least here in North America, from what I've experienced. But the problem with DEI, it doesn't, even though it tries to enable this diversity, equity, and inclusion essentially through force, the problem is that this idea it's steeped in an ideology, right? And like any ideology that we've come up with over the centuries, is that the ideology, it might not be based on something that is true, right? It could just be based on some feelings that people have towards aspects of history or human culture, or some philosophic ideas. But those ideas don't have to be grounded in the truth to be considered real. I mean, with Marxism, the idea is that all relationships stem from essentially oppression. That those people in power, in order to get there, they oppress those underneath them, and that the proletariat or the working class has to rise up against that suppression. And it's difficult to not look at stories like that as being romantic in some way, shape, or form. Because who doesn't want to rebel, right? Like, who doesn't want to rebel against the powers that be? Who doesn't want to go against the grain in that regard and to stand up for the rights and freedoms of everyone? Sure. Why not? Those people have a lot, and I have very little. So I might as well just go out and take it, because it's unfair the way that I've been treated. It's a very, very easy trap to fall into, especially if you're young, right? But the problem is that when this ideology, right, whether it's DEI, Marxism, what have you, when these ideologies are actually implemented, right? The actions and the steps that are taken to actually implement these ideas end up causing a lot more damage than actual good, because they're fundamentally they're based on a lie, right? And DEI, the lie that it's based on is that we live in the most racist society to date, that we live in a society that is not inclusive enough, that is not diverse enough, that is not equitable enough to everyone. And as far as storytelling goes, that's a hell of a story to say about North America, or whichever continent, whichever place this ideology takes root. It's kind of wild to say that, because like we openly celebrate diversity in North America. I mean, this is the land of the immigrants. This is the place where people hundreds of years ago abandoned everything that they knew and everyone that they knew and took a chance on coming here. And it's been that way ever since. And so it's very strange to see this idea of DEI popping up in a place like North America that is immigrant based to its core, for the most part. Like, yeah, you have plenty of people that were born here, obviously, and they make up a good chunk of the population. In Canada, I think the breakdown is 70 to 30. I'm not sure what it is in the States, though. But that number of immigrants has been slowly creeping up over the years. And so in any case, just to get back to the main point, the story that DEI tells, it's enticing and in some ways can be romanticized as a struggle against the oppressors. But fundamentally, the story is not only wrong, but it goes against just fundamental tenets of what makes a story good. And the reason I'm focusing on this idea of a story is because stories are the way that it's the mechanism through which we make sense of the world. Stories are, and I'm not just talking about like what you read to your children at night or what you read as a kid. I'm not talking about fiction or books. I'm talking about the narrative structure of our lives, right? Not only our lives, but also the histories that we learn, the people that we meet, and just about everything we do. It all becomes part of a story. When a child is told to not play with dangerous items or not to touch the stove, like they incorporate that into their story. They start to realize, okay, so glowing red thing is hot, I'm gonna avoid it. And if they don't obey their parents' wishes, and if they don't listen to that story, then once they actually encounter that thing and touch it, they'll actually understand, okay, this is dangerous, I shouldn't do it again. And that incorporates into their story, and so on and so forth. And some of these stories, right, like the most infamous of them all, being the Bible, some of these stories have universal qualities to them, meaning that these stories are inhabiting a kind of space where you have incidents or examples of human character that everyone can relate to, whether it's betrayal or envy, love, lust, death, rebirth, right? All these different themes that are located in these ancient texts, those are significant, right? Those actually matter. Because there's a reason why the Bible remains the best-selling book of all time. I'm pretty sure it still is, actually. Is the Bible best-selling book of all time? Which is crazy to think about because of how many they give away for free. But let's see here. Yeah. It still remains the best-selling book of all time. Right, and that means something, right? Like, that's not nothing. Says it sold an estimated 5 to 7 billion copies over 1,500 years. Right, because that story that's told in the Bible, those stories, they have staying power. They connect to certain immutable characteristics of human nature that just make it so that just about anyone reading the book can identify with at least something that's in there. Right, can identify and incorporate that into their life and benefit from it. And I'm sure, there's obviously also plenty of people that take advantage of that. And I'm not saying that the story is pure, that it's the best thing that you've ever read. I found reading the Bible boring as shit. But I also, like, I read it when I was a teenager, when I didn't care, I didn't understand the role that religion had to play. I'm sure if I read it again, I would have a completely different attitude towards it. I think I still have a copy lying around. I should probably check it out sometime. But in any case, it's not that it's the best story ever written in that sense, that it's exciting or that it's flashy. Like, I remember reading it, just a lot of passages that, whether it was the translation that I had or what, but I just couldn't click with it. But now, having gone through some life experiences, I'm sure I'd have a much different take if I were to give it another read. So getting back to the idea of the story, right? These stories matter, and the story that the Bible tells us, from my limited understanding, right, as somebody who's not practicing Christian or anything, but my understanding of it is that in order to get as close as we can to the highest ideal of what it means to be good, we have to take it upon ourselves to embrace the sacrifice and struggle of life openly and willingly, in a way that not only uplifts us, but also our family and our friends and our communities. And that should be the ultimate goal, and that even though if you may stray from that goal, there is a path towards redemption, which is very important. That you are not lost forever, that there is a way back to believing and to understanding the power that the Bible can bring. And so that's my limited understanding of it. And just as a story on its own, that story is so powerful. Okay, it shifted entire continents. That story is so powerful that millions upon millions upon millions of men and women have died for it. That story is so powerful that people sailed across the seas in order to conquer new lands and spread the gospel of this story. Right? Like that right there should tell you everything about why storytelling is important and why the stories that we believe are important. Because the stories that we believe, it's how we make sense of the world, and it informs our actions. On a fundamental level, that's essentially what stories do. And the closest thing that we have in the 21st century now is what's called the narrative, right? Or the mainstream media, corporate journalist narrative. Mainstream media is no longer mainstream. Now fucking Joe Rogan's mainstream, but that's neither here nor there. But we have this idea of narrative, right? And these narratives, they kind of fluctuate throughout the years. Like, for example, the Trump-Russia collusion narrative. For the longest time, we would hear constantly on the news how this was the smoking gun. They had direct information that Trump colluded with Putin, and all this hubbub over all those years, the millions of dollars spent on those investigations, the nightly coverage of the news that would feature a story just about every single fucking day for his entire presidency. It was Russia, 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 Russia. And then nothing came of it. Nothing. I think like one individual was arrested, and I don't even remember for what. Trump was never actually arrested himself or indicted or charged with anything as a result of any of that. And they had the full force of the entire, left-leaning mainstream media, corporate media wing, just talking about the issue nonstop to no end. And then nothing came of it. And then what happened? Right? Did anybody come out and say, "Oh shit, we got this wrong"? Like, oh damn, we kind of messed up here. Maybe we should not have covered that, or maybe we should have been more fair with the coverage, or we kind of went over our skis in that regard. No, there was nothing. They just let it fizzle out, and so that narrative stayed in people's heads. And to this day, there are still, there's a good chunk of people that still believe that, yeah, 100%, Trump definitely colluded with Russia in order to win the 2016 election. Let me actually even pull up some stats. Now, polls are not 100% 100% accurate, so let's take this with a grain of salt. But let's see here. Maybe Global News will save us. Oh, 2019. Okay, well, that's 5 years ago. And 2022, a Rasmussen poll found some things. And this is in regards to Democrats in 2022, so even 2 years ago. Yeah. So, in any case, that's all to illustrate the point that the stories or the narratives that we tell ourselves matter. Because if there's a growing amount of people, or at least a certain amount of people that still believe in this narrative, right, that was told to us over 4, 5, 6 years, and it's still being told in some regard, and that influenced people's actions, well, that, once again, illustrates everything you need to know about how powerful storytelling and narratives are. That's why when you have scandals break out, like the Hunter Biden laptop story, right? If anyone remembers, that same day that it happened, everyone went on lockdown. In terms of the story, like the New York Post was locked out of Twitter. Previous to the leak or to the news story, there were 50 plus intelligence officials that signed a letter denouncing it as Russian misinformation. Zuckerberg even admitted in a Joe Rogan podcast, I think it was about 2 years ago or so when he appeared, that they were approached by the FBI letting them know that they were going to see some major stories break and that they could have been misinformation, so they also targeted it. Twitter blocked people from even sending it to their friends to DM it, right? So that was also part of crafting a narrative. When in reality, like, that story breaking would have actually potentially even changed some minds for the election, and who knows where we'd be now if that actually happened. So stories matter, narratives matter, right? These things matter. And so when the NAACP in 2023 puts out a travel advisory, and this is from their own website, right? This is not some, like, anybody can read this, okay? This was written in May 20th, 2023. The NAACP, for anyone that's not aware, I always get the acronym wrong. I want to make sure I get this right. The NAACP is an American organization. It stands for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, right? And so they essentially work with the legal system in defending certain cases of black activism. And it was established by W.E.B. Du Bois. I wasn't aware. Yeah, so as in response to ongoing racial injustices. Okay, so it was actually started by some of the civil rights leaders and organizers of that time. Right, so the whole point is to advance causes and legal cases for colored people, as they say. Which, wow, I mean, they still in 2024, they're allowed to say colored people? That's funny. That's a sign of the times. Yeah, founded in 1909. That makes sense, because you would... Good luck. Good luck calling someone black a colored person. Yeah, so see what that does to you. In any case, this is from their website, and just last year they released a travel advisory saying that any black person traveling to Florida should be careful because Florida is, I quote, openly hostile towards African Americans, people of color, and LGBTQ+ individuals. Before traveling to Florida, please understand that the state of Florida devalues and marginalizes the contributions of and the challenges faced by African Americans and other communities of color. How fucking wild is that? How wild is that? An organization that has had a very, I want to say, interesting reputation over the years, is openly stating that traveling to a state within America is dangerous for black people. What, you know what, just out of curiosity, what is the percentage of the population in Florida which is black or LGBTQ identifying? Exclusive categories. Come on. Look at this thing go. So quick. Perplexity.ai for all your AI needs. I'm going to keep showing them throughout this whole thing. So as of the 2020 census data, the Black/African American population alone in Florida was approximately 3.3 mil, so 16% of the total population. In 2024, basically the same thing, around 16%. Like that, and that's not like that's 3 million people. That's 3.3 million people, and you want to tell me that they live in that state and that they should worry for their safety? What kind of shit is that? Where is this coming from? And their justification was that failing to teach an accurate representation of the horrors and inequalities that Black Americans have faced and continue to face is a disservice to students and a dereliction duty to all. So I guess this is in response to Ron DeSantis' bill. They were changing some things regarding the education system. To be honest, not quite familiar, but you know what? Let's look it up. Why not? We got the time. What was the Florida bill DeSantis pushed that resulted in the NAACP travel advisory? Let's dig deep. Fuck it. Why not? Let's find out. Also, hope everyone's having a good night. Hope you enjoy the stream. Gonna do a little bit of a deep dive here. So this was... So it wasn't a single bill, but rather a response to a series of legislative actions and policies implemented under Governor Ron DeSantis' leadership. So there were several bills. The Stop Woke Act, which restricted the teaching of certain concepts related to race and diversity. HB 1, which increased the penalties for certain protest-related offenses. They rejected AP African American studies. AP stands for Applied, which is like a high-level course. It's like an additional course that you can take if you're doing really well in school, in the high schools anyways. He also signed a bill to limit spending on DEI programs. Not sure why concealed carry is in here. Wait, did they actually... They had a problem with concealed carry? No way. Individuals may carry concealed firearms without permits in Florida. Huh. Yeah, so they did. Yeah, so they did include it in their travel advisory. Interesting. So as a result of all this, they decided to issue... Yes, Tome. Happy Whitepill Wednesday to everyone. Thanks for dropping by, man. Appreciate it. So because Florida decided that... Oh, Ron DeSantis and his leadership decided that they were not going to stand by and let this kind of stuff be taught in the school. Because of that, they decided to issue a travel advisory. I mean, like, when's the last time... Oh, thanks, Tome. Appreciate you dropping by. You have yourself a great day as well, bud. So, I don't know, like, how many of you remember what it was like to be in high school, but just about... I mean, I don't remember half the shit that I learned when it came to... I mean, most of the subjects. Like, I remember, like, cursory things. Like, here in Canada, they teach us French, so I understand, like, some words and basic sentence structure. English, obviously, that's just integral to how you communicate, so it's not as if you have to try to remember that. With history, you know, some basic overtures about the world wars in the 20th century specifically. A little bit Canadian history here and there. But I mean, I don't know about you, but I personally would not have faith in the public education system and its ability to teach, I mean, literally anything of substance. Like, I don't know about you guys, but maybe it was the school that I went to, but there were plenty of teachers that I encountered on a daily basis, year in and year out. A good chunk of them were mentally unstable, and they couldn't handle a classroom of kids when they were acting out. And I'm not saying that, like, we threw shit against the walls and it was, like, fucking... I don't know, some drug den and people playing music and all. Like, no, I went to a nice school, but these people were legitimately just like unhinged. Like, they just had breakdowns in class in front of students. I remember one time we had like a math teacher who was getting an evaluation by the principal, and she felt that she was under so much pressure that she broke down as soon as he left because she couldn't like she got stuck in the middle of the lesson on some kind of math equation that she forgot how to do, so a student had to point it out. Look, I don't know what the circumstances of that lady's life were, but I could never see myself breaking down like that in front of students. Maybe she just had a lot of personal stuff going on, I don't know. But she wasn't the only example. I saw plenty of that. Right? So that's all to say that, like, public schooling is not exactly the most effective method of, actually learning. A lot of people would probably be much better off doing a lot of learning outside of school. And the system needs to be revamped from the ground up, if you ask me. So it's just very strange that, like, the NAACP is hanging on the fact that, oh my God, they're not teaching this in schools anymore. Holy shit, how will the kids ever learn about this? Everybody has access to the internet these days. Everybody has access to the internet these days. Anyone is free to look up just about anything they want, short of state secrets. There's fucking libraries in most of these urban settings. I don't understand, like, what barrier is there? What, that because, like, they're not teaching it on autopilot in schools? You know what that teaching would be? Here's what the teaching would look like. They'd give you fucking worksheets, right? The teacher would fucking put on some film and sit down and, like, go on their phone. Like, rarely is it actually, like, an engaging class where everybody's paying attention and everyone's communicating. Like, these are kids, man. They're kids. You're lucky to get 15 minutes worth of their attention span in a day. Okay? Like, they, at least in high school, like, a lot of them don't give a shit. They don't care. They just space out, they zone out, or they don't show up to class at all because they don't feel like it. Right? So, like, this idea that because Florida removed certain things of the curriculum, and I don't even know what what is it that they removed? Did they remove, like, entire classes? Did they remove, like, did they ban the topics from being taught at all? It's just, to me, it's laughable to say that because this is not being taught in the public school education system, that, holy shit, black people are in danger in all of Florida. That's a wild fucking accusation to make. And I realize that's not the only thing, the only reason that they issued this travel advisory. There's a couple of other things, but it is laughable on the face of it. For an organization that's existed for as long as it has, and that has dealt with as many, like, groundbreaking cases as it has, it's very strange to see them come out and do something like this, which is wild. It's wild. And then also, just as a little another tidbit, in terms of how far-reaching this DEI story is, I didn't know about this. Apparently, Hollywood has, like, a diversity report that they put out every single year that breaks down the audience that watches it, the makeup of the cast itself, of the top shows, and what percentage of them are minority, what percentage of them are disabled or female. And this is funded by UCLA, I believe. Yeah, UCLA Hollywood Diversity Report. Yeah. This is how important it is to them. Keep in mind, like, Hollywood is a global multi-billion-dollar industry. Right? These people are not small-time, like, players. Okay? Hollywood literally marks the media culture around the globe. The movies that they put out are movies that everyone watches. Everyone. Or at least has heard of, to an extent. Right? They are a behemoth. And they invest a lot of money into these programs, into ensuring that those percentage points are as high as they can be. Which, look, I'll say this. Whatever your feelings about diversity in media, for anyone that actually saw She-Hulk, Jesus, the amount of fucking slop in that show, I think that was, like, the last show that I watched just because I realized I'm so tired of seeing cape shit. Especially that scene where the Hulk fucking twerked. That was just... Oh, I think that was the nail in the coffin for me when it came to Marvel. And anyways, in any case, right? So that's also the story that they're telling. That this is so important that entire sections of the cultural behemoths within the most economically powerful nation are invested in this. Right? It's so important to them to have diversity that they have a yearly report that they put money and time and effort into. And anyone that speaks against this stuff, or just about anyone, is liable to, at least in this example, be fired. Where an employee for Honeywell, they make a lot of consumer products like toasters, heaters, basic appliances, but they're a fairly big player. An employee decided to opt out of their unconscious bias training, which, for anyone that doesn't know, unconscious bias training is essentially this idea that everyone has these unconscious biases that they hold, whether it's against a racial group or like a group of varying sexuality, what have you, right? That we just have these biases and they're internal, and that we cannot control them, but we must be aware of them so that we don't act on them, which is very, like, that comes off as the most Freudian shit ever. Like, you're already implicitly telling everyone that everyone has these biases. It's just about, like, controlling them and actually, like, let me break it down. What is unconscious bias? Also known as implicit bias, refers to the prejudices or stereotypes that individuals hold about certain groups of people without being consciously aware of them. So it's one thing to have a thought of, like, you're walking down the street and it's like 3 a.m. and you see somebody that's hooded with a hood on and is black and is walking across the street, and you have a thought like, oh, this might go south. But it's another thing that they're mentioning here that this goes beyond that. This goes to the point where you're not even consciously aware of it. You're just acting like that. Which, like, does one even go about measuring something that you are not consciously aware of? Like, what kind of fucking Scientology, Thetan, E-level shit do you have to do to understand what you're not aware of? I find that concept very strange. I don't understand how you can just... maybe I'm just not seeing it. Maybe I'm just retarded. But I have a hard time understanding how you can actually measure something like this or even control it. Because by its own definition, it's unconscious. Right? So you have this idea of prejudices and stereotypes that you don't even know about, but you're just acting directly on it. How do you even go about fixing that? Here's my question. But in any case, so he had to do this training, which a lot of people, a lot of companies have been pushing for. He said no, so they just fired him. He tried to countersue, or not countersue, but he tried to sue them, and they didn't. The courts didn't uphold it because it doesn't. I think they said it had something to do with freedom of speech laws and some federal discrimination laws. In any case, the man got fired, right? So that's what happens when you go against it. Or, in the recent case, for those unfamiliar, this is a case that actually happened here in Ontario, where at a small town, the mayor... oh, there's not even a photo of the mayor? Oh, come on. No, we gotta show this. Where's the... This man looks like... I mean, he looks like a farmer. Is there really no image of this guy? There he is. Look at this fucking baller. With a plaid shirt and everything. What a legend. What an absolute legend. And emo, for those unfamiliar, including myself, because I never heard of this town. How big is this town? Oh my god, this town is fucking tiny. Where are they even located? Holy shit, they're like... Oh wait, no, hold on. They're on the border. Okay, so they're on is a border town. I mean, look at how small that town is. It's nothing but farmland around it. And yeah, there's not even a bridge, so it's not as if like there's a crossing. Like this is a small town as small towns get. They have a hospital, a home hardware, grocery. I'm sure they have at least one bar. There's a club emo. No way. Oh, it's an anime. It's an anime club. That's awesome. Good for them. I'm glad they have anime out there. That's great. You got a tractor dealer. Harold McQuaker. Okay, yeah, like, come on, guys. These guys are fucking country bumpkins. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I love my fellow countrymen. I'm just saying that this is a small town. Okay? This is a small town that's got that small town vibe. I mean, look at their main street. Is this the main street? Oh, is the Trans-Canada... Oh, the Trans-Canada Highway goes right through them. That's neat. And I guess they got some kind of a racetrack there. I don't know if it's for horses or for cars. Probably for... Wait, is this it? Oh, it's just across from here. Looks like it's for cars. Oh, actually, no, I don't know. Can't tell. In any case, this small town in northwestern Ontario. I mean, look at it. You zoom out and you can barely even see that it's there. They got fined by the Ontario Human Rights Tribunal for quote-unquote damages after refusing to proclaim Pride Month back in 2020. Which, like, who the fuck are you? Who is the government to tell these people that they have to celebrate a holiday? What kind of wild shit is that? Why does a government body have a right to tell people what not to and what to celebrate? I understand that if it's in the case of a statutory holiday where wages might be concerned, or just, you know, there's something to do with, like, people have to take the time off, the days off for work. I understand that, right? Having something for like Canada Day, or Christmas or New Year's, sure. But Pride Month doesn't have that designation in Canada. Not yet, anyway. Right? This isn't like a holiday that we absolutely have to celebrate. It's just something that people decide to celebrate on their own. Like this isn't something that is in any way, shape, or form mandated, nor should it be. Right, because this isn't something that is like a national landmark. It's not like some kind of a massive undertaking, or that it has this reputation of being like hundreds of years old, or what have you, right? Like there isn't that staying power with this, with the LGBTQ pride stuff, and yet they're getting fined $15,000. $5,000 coming from the mayor, so he has to personally pay that? That is insane. That is fucking insane. And apparently the organization that's suing it is called Borderland Pride. They've been going wild on Twitter as of late. They've been going absolutely buck wild. Oh, they locked their posts! Oh, they locked their posts. Damn, that's a shame. That's a shame, because right up until they locked their posts, when people were dunking on them, rightfully so, right? When people were dunking on them, they were clapping back. They were saying, "Oh my God, you guys are so like bigoted. Imagine being so homophobic, so transphobe." What are you talking about? That has nothing to do with this. This is a small town that chooses to not commemorate this month. Why is that a crime? Why does that face a legal fine? I'm stunned by it. I don't understand. So what, if they said that they were celebrating Pride Month but nobody actually commemorated it, they would have been untouched? Is there like an official form that you have to sign with the Canadian government that says you have to sign it? Oh, what the fuck? They just added a new letter. Wait, where'd the plus go? I could have sworn there was a plus in the LGBTQ alphabet soup thing. So it's 2SLGBTQA. What is it? Is it asexual? I think that's asexual. Doesn't that mean you don't want to fuck people, though? I'm so confused by all this. In any case, right, so this is what happens when you go against it in Canada. Even if you're a small town. You get sued by fucking Borderland Pride, which is an organization that, as far as I know, I don't even think they... Where are they even located? Is this even a Canadian... Yeah, okay, so it is a Rainier River District in northwestern Ontario. And Minnesota, for some reason. Strange. Just very strange. I don't understand what purpose this serves, but alright, so they can just sue small town mayors. Or even in the tragic case of this man who... I mean, this story is heartbreaking. This man, Richard Bilk... I'm gonna butcher this. I'm sorry, Richard. Bilkstow? I think it's Bilkstow. Might have been Polish. This man gave the Toronto District School Board, and Toronto is the largest city in Ontario and the most populated city in Ontario, and is, I think, either the most... I think it's the business center of Canada, if I'm not mistaken. It's either that or Vancouver, but I'm fairly certain it's still Toronto. In any case, right, in the biggest public education system in all of Canada, this man served 24 years. 24 years of his life he gave to that job. And what ended up happening was, as a result of the fact that he went against the TDSB, Toronto District School Board, in their pursuit for pushing towards the DEI agenda, like there was a meeting that they had, a training session that they had, and in that training session, the person that ran it, Kike Ojo-Thompson, was a diversity trainer in Toronto. She openly stated that Canada is a bastion of white supremacy and colonialism, and that the racism we experience is far worse here than there. Which I don't understand what she means by there. I don't know if she's referring to the United States. But this idea that Canada is a bastion of white supremacy and colonialism, look, for anyone that lives in an urban setting in Canada, knows that this is a flat-out lie. Like, if it's such a bastion of white supremacy and colonialism, then why aren't the KKK marching here? Walk into any downtown core of any major city and tell me if the kind of diversity that you see in those cities shows a culture of white supremacy and colonialism. I have a very hard time believing that. And so as a result of him going against these training sessions that they had, right, when he disagreed with them openly in the sessions, he began to be targeted and harassed by not only the people that were in the session, but also, I'm pretty sure, by Kike Ojo-Thompson herself. Here's leading through attendees to recession on systemic inequity. Well, actually, why don't we just listen to it here? We can just listen to it here.
The racism is we experience it far worse here than there. So I know that's going to be a hard one for people to wrap their head around, but that's the level of white supremacy. Like, Canada's a bastion of white supremacy and colonialism. And like, they at least had a fighting posture against at least the monarchy. Here, we celebrate the monarchy, the very heart and soul and origins of the colonial structure. Think about that. Right? And all that it represents. We hold it dear still.
Okay. That's an interesting statement to make, considering that certainly not my experience of Canada. If by celebrate the monarchy she means that we learn about it in schools and we have some holidays that commemorate it, and on occasion members of the royal family visit us, then yeah, sure. But we're not exactly flying the Union Jack over here in Canada, right? Like, the Queen and King might be on our coins and money, but I don't recall the last time I met someone or that it came across in conversation that, oh my God, don't you just love the system that we used to live under, the monarchy, the British? I have a very hard time understanding why she thinks that that is a correct assumption to make. And so after that, Bilksto, the man who commits suicide, he offered this in rebuttal.
I just want to make a comment about the Canada-U.S. thing, and I have a little bit of a challenge of it. I did my student teaching in the U.S. and have spent a lot of time in the U.S. And to say here, honestly, that Canada is not a more just society than the United States is, and we talked about facts and figures. I invite everyone here to do some research, and you look at yeah, absolutely. And look at things like education, and look how more you think about a system we have in Ontario where every student is funded equally. You go to the United States, they're funded based on their tax base, right? And I see you're shaking your head, but I taught in Buffalo.
What I'm saying, sir, is that why I'm shaking my head is that it absolutely matters what community you live in Ontario.
That's not what I said. What I said was...
I'm not arguing what you said. Yeah. What I'm saying is, because I'm talking about the principle of your point. Yeah. It's not about what you said. This is not a court of law. The principle of your point is that you can base it on, well, they have this tax system, and that's true. What I'm saying to you is that what racialized people experience in this province is that it absolutely matters where you live. So it's not, so the fact of the tax system is not untrue. What you're saying is not untrue, but how it's lived out in Ontario is not as you say, is all I'm saying, is that the Jane and Finch kids are not having the same experience as the Forest Hill kids. They're just not. And that's despite our equal laws. So in that way, it's worse because we have fake equality, or in the name of that equality, kids are still experiencing systemic inequities. So that's the point.
I understand when I hear what you're saying, right? However, I think to ignore that fact, right, that we talked about here about, capitalism, socialism, we're very happy here. We have a public education system where everyone is funded the same way. It's not like that in the United States. We have a healthcare system here where everyone has access to healthcare. It is not the same way in the United States. So to sit here and say, all honesty, we're talking about facts and figures, and to walk into the classroom tomorrow and say, Canada's just as bad as the United States, I think we're doing an incredible disservice to our learners. Disservice to our learners. And again, that's what I want to say that, right?
Thank you so much. What I'm finding interesting is that in the middle of this COVID disaster, where the inequities in this fair and equal healthcare system have been properly shown to all of us. I mean, so it's just so what's fascinating is, and this is why we're in this place that we're in, is that you think, so we're here to talk about anti-Black racism, but you and your whiteness think that you can tell me what's really going on for Black people? Like, is that what you're doing? Because I think that's what you're doing, but I'm not sure. So I'm going to leave you space to tell me what you're doing right now.
Exactly. I just wanted to make the point. You were talking about the United States, and I just want to do a comparison. And as I said, you talked about facts and figures, and listening to the facts and figures. And I think if everyone here looks at the facts and figures and all kinds of
right. So it goes on and on and on. The point is, right, she was trying to make the assertion that here in Canada we have it much worse than the U.S. We're actually more unequal to racialized minorities, that we're actually even more unfair, and that could not be further from the truth. Just like fundamentally, it's as he said, schools get equal funding here. Yeah, it does matter where students live to an extent because, well, that changes like which schools you can go to. There's a lottery system here, at least in Ontario or Toronto, where students can apply to go to a school, like a public school, that is not within their district. There's no guarantee that they can win the lottery. It's all randomized. But there is a system. Like, for instance, my family, we moved neighborhoods because we wanted to get a much better chance of getting into a certain school in a certain district because we knew the opportunities were better there. And, sure, some people can't make that choice, but there was still a lottery open to it. We just didn't want to chance it on the lottery, so we moved. Right? So there's no systemic barriers to education in Canada from what I understand. Like, there's not, When you apply for a student loan, it doesn't ask you whether you're black or white. Like when you're applying to any of these financial services, there's no box that asks you what race or what identity you belong to or what group you belong to. So this idea that there's a restriction based on race in terms of education, that just seems very strange. But in any case, that's not the important thing. The important thing is that for the next 2 years, right, this man lost his job. His reputation was tarnished. People, including the person that led that session, just went after him. And he filed a lawsuit against the TDSB. And he lost, I'm pretty sure. The man lost the lawsuit. He retired in 2019. And he went on to kill himself. The man killed himself because of this harassment. Okay, not sure what you're getting at, Dallas, but I'm just gonna power through here. The man was killed because of this. Well, no, he wasn't killed. He took his own life because of the harassment that he faced. Which I don't understand how you can justify such a thing. I don't understand how anyone could go after this person in the way that they did. For what? For his disagreement with opinion? This man gave 24 years of his life to the public education system. His reputation, as you can read for yourself in the article, it'll say that he was known as the kind of person that was sent into these schools within the inner city that were troubled, that had students with low rates of graduation or low rates of attendance. And he was brought in to help clean up that mess. Like, that's what he did for a living. I don't even think he was married. He did it for the love of the game. And when he spoke out against these DEI ideas in this training session, he was demonized. He was thrown out. He went into retirement. And eventually he took his own life because the thing that he loved doing was taken away from him. It's tragic. It's absolutely tragic. And I invite each and every single one of you to give the story a read, because none of this should have ever happened. None of this should have ever happened. And what ended up happening was this person, the person that led the session, she actually works for, I think she works for a consulting firm now. So she's still doing her job. And I don't know how she can, I don't know how you can sleep with yourself after doing something like that. Oh, she has an institute. Oh, good for her. Good for her. Just gets paid thousands of dollars to talk about how racist Canada is and how awful it is, the experience of the people that live here. Yeah. Dallas, with all due respect, just gonna close off the little point that you said. Location matters, as you mentioned. Your family had the opportunity to move. Those that couldn't were subject to a lottery. Yeah, you don't have to buy into the lottery. It's free. There's no cost to it. And anyone could enter into it. And when I said lottery, I mean like you put your name in, not a hat, but just for the sake of this example, you would just put your name into this draw, and your name would be randomly drawn. So nobody, like, this doesn't cost money. It doesn't cost money to submit your name or anything like that. The lottery that I mentioned, it would be completely random. So you would just put your name in, and then they would choose a name at random, and that's that. So, like, that process, that's as fair as it gets, because anyone could be chosen. It's not as if like black people are given a black piece of paper and white people are given a white piece of paper and then they choose based on that. No, like the whole process was random. So anyone could attend these schools if they were lucky enough to win the lottery, or if they just were able to live in a district. I know a lot of people that what they actually ended up doing, a lot of my classmates, because they didn't live in a district, they had a family friend that lived in the region and they put their home address on the school registration process. So they would have that address where they quote unquote lived, when in reality they actually lived elsewhere in the city. So there's ways around this. Like, to say that there's some kind of a barrier that's based on racial lines when it comes to access of education in Canada is fundamentally a ridiculous statement. Like, there's no laws that say that black people can't go to certain schools. There's no laws that are based on race or some kind of an inherent identity. Right? And this is exactly what this man was saying. Is that here in Canada, we actually have systems that are way more fair than they are in the US in some regards, right? In some areas of the US. And the fact that he stood up against this, right, and said that actually, hey, Canada is not nearly as racist as you're trying to make it out to be, that we're not a haven for white supremacy, that we're not a haven for celebration of colonialism. For fuck's sake, we have dedicated a holiday to the remembrance of all that. Learning about native tribes and cultures and their eradication, right? That's part of the school curriculum. It's not as if these concepts are foreign to this, right? And that's not even to say that, oh, colonialism isn't a big deal or that it didn't have an impact in Canada. Of course, that's an insane observation to make. But I'm saying that this idea that we're still rooted in colonialism and all these systems are set up as a result, that is a ridiculous thing to say about Canada especially. There is no law on the books right now that bars anybody from any identity or any background from doing anything that they want in their life. Like there's absolutely none of that. Does that mean that everyone is able to have the same access to opportunities as everyone else? Of course not. Yeah, there's lines that cut across economic classes. Of course. If you're poor, you can't do the same things as if you're rich. That goes anywhere. But more to the point, right? If North America is so racist, if we're to believe the story that we are being told by her and the DEI initiatives, then why are record amount of people immigrating to North America? Why are people literally abandoning their families in all these other nations and clamoring over barbed wire through guards? In some cases, they go across the border up into Canada through the frozen cold. Right? If we're such an awful place to minorities and people of racialized backgrounds, then why are so many people coming here? Why are so many people doing everything they can to save up enough money to get over here so that they can earn money to live and to send back home so that they can get more of their family members here? I find that insinuation very strange, to say that we are an inherently racist society or that there's active discrimination. It falls flat on its safe. It's very, very strange. And obviously it doesn't mean that North America is free from discrimination. Just about everywhere you go on the planet, there is some form of discrimination. There will always be an in-group and an out-group. It's part of human nature. It's what we have done for thousands of years. It's what we will continue to do for thousands of years until, I don't know, the next big leap forward, until we become cybertronic machinations, until race is no longer a problem, until I guess everyone's the same skin color. I don't know what that point looks like. I don't know. But in any case, every single place on Earth is filled with discrimination. And as far as North America's done about righting the wrongs of the past, it's a whole lot better than a lot of other places. Go try being black in Russia and see what happens. They are not all that friendly to black people over there. They really are not. And I'm sure if you go to certain parts of Europe, they have their own opinions on that too. Right? Discrimination is universal. Okay, and it's not limited to one group or one identity or any nation or a single grouping of people. It's widespread. People are still fucking arguing about PlayStation versus Xbox bullshit. Like, still, this is a screen cap from the other day. Oh, this is a year ago. My mistake. The screen cap that I found the other day of people still talking about it. So yeah, it's part of our nature. Right, and so the problem with DEI that comes into frame when we look at the fact that the solutions that DEI offers to right the wrongs of the past is through forceful discrimination in the present. Right, that we have to force these decisions from upon high, from the executive boards, from the political offices of power, that these are ideals that instead of letting them flourish naturally, that we must force this. Which is an interesting way to go about it, to say the least. But fine. Let's take a look at some of these fantastic DEI policies that have been enacted across North America. So in 2021, the Canadian government had this thing called the Call to Action. They created this board that was supposed to oversee just about every organization in the Canadian government, every single government body. They would essentially be asked to do a self-report where they would indicate, based on a series of questions, to what extent they had been making opportunities for Black and Indigenous and racialized people to get ahead. So one of the questions, for example, it said, have you, as head of your organization or your executive teams, sponsored at least 2 Indigenous employees and Black and other racialized employees to prepare them for leadership roles? Not sure how they came up with 2. I'm not sure why it's not at least 3 or not at least 4. I don't understand it. And there's no explanation to it either. Like, the self-assessment is here for anyone that wants to see. And these are all the government bodies that are affected, including the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Yes, of course, because what the FBI needs, the FBI of Canada needs is diversity. Yeah. Yeah, here's the questions. Like, for example, for the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. So I'm not sure how they came up with that number. There's no explanation as to why. Minimum of 2 Black or Indigenous or racialized people. And in any case, they also implemented a feature where they would essentially have to have a plan that would stretch for years, that would indicate their not only approval, but an actual step-by-step process that they would use to make sure that these quote-unquote wrongs were righted over the years. So this is not something that is just seen in the short term. This is something that they are working on developing over several years' time. And changing the course on this would be quite difficult, I would imagine. But it's very strange to me that the government of Canada is so gung-ho about doing something like this, because what this really looks like is, so across every single, like I said, every single government organization, every single one here, everything from agriculture, going all the way down to the Veterans Review and the Appeal Board. It's strange to me because I'm not sure what it is that Black and Indigenous people or racialized people are able to do better than white people when it comes to government bureaucracy. I'm very confused as to why they are seen as people that are uniquely unable to do the same work of their white counterparts. Like, why is it that they have a hard time advancing? Are there any laws on the books that prevent these people from getting these opportunities? Are there any like racist managers? Is that like the problem, that Canada's just filled with racist, like just absolutely gung-ho Heil Trump Nazis? Like, is that really the case? If it is, I haven't heard about it. I haven't really heard any news covering the subject. I haven't really heard anything on this topic of managers getting fired en masse. So it's just very strange to think, like, why would you want to implement a policy that is trying to support these people when I'm not certain of the fact that these people are having a hard time getting these jobs in government? Like, is there really an epidemic of these people being held back from their positions because of their race? Is there really, like, all these barriers to these people? I find that very hard to believe in a country like Canada. Look, for fuck's sake, we celebrate our diversity. Canada is known. Like, we're taught in schools that the difference between Canada and America is that Canada is a mosaic, that we celebrate all cultures equally, or that we attempt to, and that the USA is a melting pot which forces you to adapt to the identity of an American. But in Canada, we have a diaspora of all these different immigrant communities. Like, if you go downtown Toronto, there's a Little Italy, Greektown, the east side of Eglinton, there's a lot of Jamaican people, Chinatown, Koreatown. There's all these different little pockets of people. Brampton is known for Indian culture, and North York has a lot of Eastern Europeans. So a lot of these like different little pockets of diversity, they exist within all of these major cities. Same thing goes for Ottawa. They have these regional places as well, and Montreal, from my understanding, also. Vancouver, I'm not so familiar with, but I wouldn't be surprised if they also had that. Like, this is something that is openly celebrated. There are holidays that you mark off in school that may not be holidays that you celebrate, but they commemorate it. Like, I remember there were multiple times where we were told about Diwali or any of these kind of religious festivals that all these different cultures had. I remember growing up, I played cricket before I played baseball. And for those who don't know, cricket is like the Indian version of, I guess, like baseball is the best way to put it. Like, I grew up in these neighborhoods with kids that were from Southeast Asia, kids that were from Northern Europe, from Eastern Europe, from Africa. Like, this idea that Canada does not celebrate its multiculturalism, or that we have some kind of an anti-multiculturalism wing or like chip on our shoulder, it just flies in the face of the lived experience of millions of people here. Like, all the people that I went to public school with, all the people that I went to university with, all the people that I meet on a daily basis. The amount of stories that I've heard of immigrants coming here to try to find more opportunity and ways to better themselves and to make money so they can send it back home. I mean, just Jesus Christ, just about everybody you talk to is an immigrant here. Just about everybody. Once you get onto the small towns, obviously there's more established people that have been here for generations and they decided to, move into those regions. But when you get to the urban centers, they're extremely diverse. Extremely. And we celebrate that openly. Like I said, there's times where you're in school and they just tell you over the announcements, hey, by the way, today's this kind of celebration. If you want to learn more, go to the library. Or, hey, today we're having an assembly, this cultural day assembly. Like, look, we have openly nationally televised ceremonies where the pride flag is hoisted on Parliament Hill, which is our White House, beside the Canadian flag. Like, you want to tell me that we're such an exclusionary place when this is on our TV, when this is on our national TV, and the Prime Minister is raising the flag himself? I have a hard time believing that. I have a very hard time believing that Canada is a hateful, racist, sexist, bigoted nation that openly discriminates against minorities, whether racial or sexually, when you have stuff like this. Like, obviously, I'm not denying that racists or people that are exclusionary in that regard exist in Canada. Of course they do. They exist everywhere. They are everywhere. And they're not all white, by the way. They're not all white. There's plenty of people that are minorities themselves that will racially discriminate against other minorities. Bro, fucking go to any community in an urban setting where you start to see the signs change in the language, whether it's Chinatown, Koreatown, what have you. Go up to an elderly person and ask how they feel about a certain cultural minority and see for yourself. This idea that racism is only reserved for whites is laughable. Everybody's capable of racism. And so this notion that because Canada is somehow exclusionary or hateful towards this, that we have to implement these government projects, it seems ridiculous to me. It seems absolutely ridiculous when we openly celebrate our diversity, and that's what Canada is known for on the national stage. Millions of people come across the border here looking for a better life, from nations that are from all backgrounds. It's very strange to make these arguments. I honestly find. As another example, in 2021, Coca-Cola decided to hold a training session where they told people to be less white. These are the images from the session, but you can look them up to see for yourself. And they define being less white as to being less oppressive, less arrogant, less certain, less defensive, less ignorant, so on and so forth. And that in the US and other Western nations, white people are socialized to feel that they are inherently superior because they are white. And that the goal was to try to be less white. Which is, that is stunning to say the least. Because the assertion here, this goes another step forward. Like, this isn't just about giving racialized or, minority people more opportunities or trying to give them a leg up. This is actively defining the quality of what it means to be white and making it synonymous with racism by saying that this is an inherent quality. Meaning that if you're born white, you are automatically in that category. That the perception that you are racist automatically fits to you because of your whiteness, quote unquote. Right? And that's literally what she says. That white people are socialized to feel that they are inherently superior because they are white. Okay. Very, very strange assertion to make. For a company that owns 35% of the US soft drink market alone and has a global presence, you would think that of all the things that they would say, it wouldn't be this. But here we are. They actually, for anyone interested, they got Robin DiAngelo to run the seminar. And Robin DiAngelo is a famous grifter within the DEI space. She's this white woman who wrote the book called White Fragility, which went viral for a little bit. That went into exactly just how racist white people were, inherently racist white people were. Book sold millions of copies, was a New York Times bestseller. She has, I wouldn't be surprised if she's made millions off this, not just the book alone, but like the speaking fees. Like a lot of these training sessions, right, that you see here, this is just one training session for one brand. Right? Like think about how many other brands are actually involved in something like this. Right? Like think about all those companies that I mentioned earlier at the beginning of all this, right? All these companies, Toyota, Walmart, where is it? Ford Motors, John Deere, Lowe's, Harley Davidson, every single one of these companies held sessions like this. They held these training sessions. That is hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that's just the one-off sessions. Who's to say they haven't, like, the companies that are still doing it, like, who's to say they don't have it every quarter or at least once a year? Like, this is a multi-million-dollar industry, this idea of DEI. For people to sit there and be told to try to be less white, that being white is racist, inherently racist, and that we live in the most discriminatory times ever. which is just silly on the face of it. And it gets even more ridiculous. Like in 2022, um, the Biden administration's Scientific Integrity Task Force released a report stating that activities counter to DEI values are disruptive to the conduct of science. Science, that any disruption against DEI policies was disruptive to the conduct of science. Which, my fucking god, like, what the fuck does DEI have to do with science? Science is among the most uncaring fields of individual identity. Okay? A fucking molecule doesn't care if you're black or white. Okay? Like, anything that you observe as a scientist or any of the theories that they come up with, they have no bearing on race or any kind of immutable quality over which you have no control over. Like, that has like, just flat on its face, has nothing to do with scientific discovery. All right, and this task force, the Scientific Integrity Task Force, their whole job is, and I quote, to provide a multi-agency forum for discussing scientific integrity issues, to facilitate improvement of policies and practices that promote scientifically informed, evidence-based decision-making at the federal level, and to identify promising opportunities to address gaps in current scientific integrity policies related to emerging technologies and evolving scientific practices. Right, so putting those, like, just to quickly sum it up, what the fuck does any of that have to do with DEI? What does scientific integrity have to do with an individual's identity? I'm stunned. What does that have to do with the race of the person doing the studying of whatever fucking topic it is, or emerging technologies? AI does not give a shit about your fucking identity. Okay, Shoggoth does not give a fuck about who you are, where you were born, or where you came from. It is uncaring. Science is uncaring when it comes to those things. It doesn't matter. All that matters is what you observe, what you can prove, and how significant that is to the landscape of human discovery. That's it. That's all that matters. That's literally all that matters. Like, okay, you want to have a discussion about, oh my god, how awful it was a century ago and difficult for black scientists. Okay, that's a different discussion to have. You want to talk about past discrimination that people felt in the scientific field, whether it was man, women, people that were black, or just anybody that was racialized. That's a conversation to have. There's no dismissing that. Obviously, that's a part of our history. We, at one point, here in North America and across the globe, discriminated against people of color and women in certain positions. Yeah, there's no escaping that. That's an obvious fact. Anybody can tell you that, just reading a basic history book. But that's not what this is asserting. Right? We're in 2024. Okay, we're in 2024 now. Where we are trying to live with the idea of the past in mind. Right? Like, we live in the present moment where, Jesus fucking Christ, some of the most famous entertainers in the world are black. America elected a black president twice. Pride has an entire month worth of celebration that happens every single year. The justification for these kind of policies in a field such as science is very strange to me. It's very strange. Science has nothing to do with an individual's race or background. It has nothing to do. Scientific discovery bears no importance on those immutable qualities. It has nothing to do with it. And the one that, honestly, when I was doing this research, the one that took the cake for me was the fact that United Airlines decided to fund a program that essentially would make it so that at least 50% of all flight school graduates in America were either women or people of color. This goal they're trying to reach by 2030, so that at least half the people involved are either racialized or, well, people of color or are women. And I mean, I don't know about you guys, but whenever I get on the plane, my first thought is not, gee, I hope my pilot is black. Like, my first thought is not, man, I wonder what the identity of the person that is keeping us all in the air is. Like, I don't get a hard-on when I see that the pilot is white. I don't, like, go up to the guy and high-five him and Sieg Heil him. I just, like, I don't do that because I'm, like many people, I don't care. I don't care. What I want to know is if my pilot is capable. I want to know if my pilot is a seasoned veteran. I want to know that the money I paid for will ensure that we're not getting somebody that is unable to do their job. I don't care about their identity. I want to make sure that if we're up in the air and anything goes down, God forbid, that they will be capable of fixing the job. Sorry, or fixing the problem. I have a really hard time seeing what it is that makes it that makes a black pilot more able to do the job, or a gay pilot, or a female pilot. I don't understand how their personal identity gives them any kind of leg up. I find it very strange, because I also haven't heard of any laws that are openly discriminating against black people applying to be pilots. I'm not aware of any such laws. And somebody in my family is a pilot. So I figure that if I would have known, I probably would have heard it by now. From them, at the least, if not on the news. But I'm not familiar. Maybe someone can point it out. I genuinely don't know. But all right, fine. Let's give them some grace. Let's say that, for the sake of the argument, the DEI people are correct because we need to help all these marginalized communities because all these places, all these organizations and businesses are hateful, racist, so on and so forth, right? Okay, let's play their game for a second here. So what happens when within these organizations, these DEI initiatives that they're pushing, what happens when, in order to get the number of applicants that they're looking for from these distinct groups, whether it's black, female, gay, what have you, what happens when you have to lower the standards for these organizations in order to admit more of these people? And this isn't just like some conspiracy. I have 6 examples here, okay, of this exact shit happening. So this is an article that's written by Heather McDonald, who openly talks about all the various programs in the U.S. Medical Licensing Board and the exam that students have to undertake, and how it's been adapted to make sure that there is more room for racialized people. Which is wild. It is wild that in order to admit more of these people, we have to lower the standards for everyone that goes into this. It's very strange for doctors. I mean, for all the people that you would think we would want to be the most capable, to be the smartest people, and they want to lower the standards because there aren't enough minorities. Like, so what happens to the medical system in 10 years' time as a result of all this? What happens to the quality of our healthcare system? And not just in the US, but in Canada too, because I'm sure they would try this stuff here in Canada if they haven't already. Like, what happens when you lower the standards for the people that are in charge of saving lives just so that you can appease some sentiment of racism? Some perceived racism. And, like, yeah, once again, I'm gonna fucking keep repeating this point. Of course, there's racism in just about every field and just about every job to some certain extent. but lowering the standards for doctors, that's supposed to somehow fix that? How? How is this? How is the lowering of the standards of the people whose job it is to save lives? How does that make sense? It's just, it's very, very strange. Like, for example, it says here, the University of Pennsylvania Medical School guarantees admission to black undergraduates who score a modest 1300 on the SAT, maintain a 3.6 GPA in college, and complete 2 summers of internships at the school. The school waives its MCAT requirement for these black students, and UPenn's non-preferred medical students score in the top 1% of all MCAT takers. Interesting. Very interesting. Highly recommend reading this article. It is quite lengthy. But the point is that medical schools across the US are now starting to lower their standards for what kind of doctors they let into their programs, which is very strange. Why would you lower the standards to just let more people in? Don't they understand that this would fundamentally change the quality of the kind of people that they let into these programs? Isn't there a point which we should stop and say, hey, maybe this system here is actually not worth fucking with? Maybe some other adjustments can be made elsewhere, or just like in literally any other way. I don't understand how lowering the standards for doctors to enter medical school and to graduate and to become practitioners, how the lowering of those standards can be justified. In any case, that's just one example. In Portland, school districts changed their entire grading scales to the point where cheating or failing would result in at least a 50% grade. At least a 50% grade. Last time I checked, when I was going to school, if you were in university and you cheated on an exam, you failed the exam, you not only failed it, but that you also had a chance to be expelled from the school and never allowed to return. And okay, fine, that's university. But even in high school, if you got caught cheating, your test would be taken and ripped up. And rightfully so. Because if you're not smart enough to get away with cheating in high school, then I don't know what to tell you. But jokes aside, okay, jokes aside, cheating, sorry, what was the statement? Cheating or failing would result in at least a 50% grade. A 50% is a pass. 50% is a pass. So if you cheated or you failed or currently in the Portland education system, then you get a pass. Which is wild. Wild. How many people are going to be skating by because of this? And I'll tell you from personal experience, if you don't learn the sting of failure, especially at a young age, at least when it comes to school, the last thing you want to do is grow up and to not have that understanding of what it means to fail as an adult. Because that fundamentally alters your perception of what kind of a person you are and what you're capable of, and it does not lead anywhere good. But the fact that kids in Portland, at least, are able to cheat and still get away with a pass is fucking wild. That is absolutely insane. New Jersey. The Board of Education decided to lower the passing test of their graduation scores because apparently not enough black kids were graduating. Any kind of signal like that, to me, what I think of immediately is if there's a certain group of people that are not doing nearly as well as they should, or as you think they should, I wouldn't think that the first instinct should be to lower the requirements for everyone. I feel like, if anything, you should probably put some money and effort and time into making sure those students can still get ahead. So if it means extra tutoring, if it means having more teachers on staff, like shouldn't that be explored as an option first instead of just lowering the threshold for everyone to graduate? It's just it's very, once again, a lot of these DEI policies, it's very strange to think that this is actually in any way, shape, or form beneficial to the people being affected by this. Because now what happens is you have all these people that would otherwise not have graduated because they did badly. Now they're allowed to skate by and go into post-secondary. Once again, with the belief that, oh, well, if the test that I take gives me a bad grade, then it must be because of racial inequality. It must be. There's no other reason. Which I don't recall ever taking a test that I felt was racially biased or ever encountering anyone in my life that ever wrote a test that was racially biased. Jesus fuck, I don't recall that ever even being a topic of conversation. I don't even know how you would make that argument that a test is racially biased. If you got tested on Shakespeare, you got tested on Shakespeare. That's it. Flat out. You either know it or you don't. Same thing with math. Same thing with any subject. I find that very strange. And once again, lowering the standards so that you can let more of these people pass, right? Whether racialized, black, or otherwise, whatever, that category of people, it doesn't do them any good either. Because you need to understand, especially when you're young, what it means to fail and what it means to work hard. And if you take that away from people, if you just give them the easy way out, they're going to be more inclined to lean on those kind of principles moving forward. And I'm speaking as someone from experience. And I look, fucking agree or disagree. Letting people pass when they shouldn't, what does that actually do to benefit them? Because then they get ahead, or they not get ahead, but then they continue throughout their journey, whether to go into work or post-secondary. For what? They didn't work for it. They didn't deserve that graduating grade. But they get to pass by just because a bunch of people felt really guilty about racism. It's just, once again, just very, very, very strange. Here's an example. Oh, I gotta do the CAPTCHA. Damn, I'm so fucking speedy with it. Look at me go. How did I... Unbelievable. I can't believe I failed that. Oh, bruv, this is so easy. Come on, I better get this one. There we go. Fucking CAPTCHA master over here. This is from The Telegraph. Title of the article reads, "Marking down students for spelling mistakes is elitist, says university." Lecturers at Hull University told to overlook grammatical blunders as part of inclusive marking policy that aims to decolonize curriculum. Okay, for anyone that never went to university or that isn't aware, I never went to the one in the UK. I went to the university here in Canada. With some professors, if your page did not have the right indent, if you did not write the correct page number or have the correct citation guide used for that specific subject, like, for example, history has the Chicago style, English, sociology, and liberal arts, they have, I believe it's MLA, and STEM, I think, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's APA, but don't quote me on that. If your paper that you submitted did not fit the code, and there is like an actual written code, like you can look it up, like Chicago has a whole citation style that's very different from MLA and APA. If your paper did not fit the citation style that your professor requested, you would get dock marks for simple shit. If you didn't have correct page numbers, if your title was not in the right place, if your page was more indented than it should be, if your font size was bigger than the professor requested, you would get dock marks. Okay, like these were microscopic details that they were looking at. And, you know, there's an argument to be had how effective that is at actually educating people or how useful that is. That's an argument for another day. But removing those standards in order to, quote unquote, decolonize a curriculum, I mean, I'm at a loss here. I have no idea why the correction of grammatical errors has anything to do with colonialism. Because being an articulate person is important. It's vital. Because it's the articulate people that are the capable people within society. In order to be a capable person within society, you have to be able to be articulate. You have to be able to communicate your ideas, to use proper punctuation, to speak effectively, if you want to get anything done. Jesus Christ, like look at some of the most decorated people in our culture. Some of the best authors and writers and geniuses. Just any of these people, like they are extremely articulate. That's not a coincidence. That's because being articulate means that you're able to effectively communicate your ideas. It means you're able to effectively argue against things. It means you're able to understand the world and perceive it in a way that helps you move forward or make better informed decisions, so on and so forth. I don't understand why there has to be a defense of being an articulate human being, of knowing how to spell properly, of knowing where commas and periods go. Like, yeah, these days everyone just posts on X or YouTube or fucking Instagram or whatever, and you could use whatever grammar you like. Sure. But in an academic setting, in a place where your research could have, like, globally, like, world order changing consequences, whether it's scientific research or certain papers that analyze different periods of history, what have you, like, these things matter. These things matter. And the fact that grammar, the correction of grammar is seen as something that should be ignored for the sake of decolonizing the curriculum? That is so ridiculous. I don't even know where to start with that. Being an articulate person is a quality that we should all aspire to the best of our abilities. Like, plain and simple. That's it. There's no additional argument to be made here. It's just it's very strange. One famous example was in NYC where this one was interesting. There's a test that teachers had to pass. I don't think it was every quarter. I think it was every year or every 2 years, in order to be certified. And apparently a lot of these teachers got together after having found that they weren't passing the exam, and they argued that it was biased. And they won a lawsuit where just about every single one of them got roughly $2 million or so from the state. Sorry, at least $1 million. My mistake. Because apparently the test was extremely biased. $1.8 billion from the city went to this. Which is, wow. That is, of all the problems that New York has, of all the problems that it faces as a city, I cannot say that this would be a good place to spend that money. Oh, and the person that they quoted here says that he couldn't recite examples of why the test was biased. Huh. And he failed the test many times. Interesting. So, the accusation is that they're biased, but the man being interviewed here, who is essentially the face of the lawsuit, or he was for a time, can't say why the test was biased, and it also states that he failed the test many times before. So, at what point does that man just kind of call it a day on that career then? I mean, like realistically, if you failed a test like multiple times and you've studied and you said you hired private tutors and it's not working, maybe it's time to pivot. Maybe it's time to change direction. Very strange. Okay. All right. So that's cool. They just gave all these teachers that failed these tests millions of dollars, which is a very strange way to reward people for failing. I don't understand that, especially when, like, he is right here. It says he couldn't recite examples of why the test was biased, and yet he gladly took the check. Okay, that's very interesting. All right. And here's one of the more famous cases where the University of Waterloo here in Canada, for those who don't know, the University of Waterloo is known for its tech programs. I believe Waterloo was actually also, was it the headquarters? What was the headquarters for BlackBerry? I think it was Waterloo. Yeah, it was. Yeah. So BlackBerry, for those who don't remember, oh man, they made some of the greatest phones. I wish they were still around. I mean, the company is still here, but they don't make the phones like they used to. Oh, these bad boys right here. Oh, with the keyboard. Man, I wish they were still a thing. I would gladly buy one of these bad boys here. If you're lucky, the one of them you had the oh, there it is, the clit that spins. Well, it wouldn't spin, but it would feel your fingers as when you went over. Oh, that's a great phone. Fucking love me some BlackBerry. Canadian company. In any case, Waterloo, right? Their university that's famous for engineering and STEM, and recently AI. They have a lot of developments in regards to that. They have a position for a research chair in computer science. These positions, and I quote, call for open only to qualified individuals who self-identify as women, transgender, gender fluid, non-binary, or two-spirit. And the second position is only open to qualified individuals who self-identify as a member of a racialized minority. So for those doing the math at home, that essentially leaves out straight white men, essentially. Or people that self-identify, as they said in their own words here, as straight white men. I mean, like, this is just blatant discrimination. Like, all the other stuff that we talked about earlier with DEI, there's an argument to be made there that, an argument that I would extremely disagree with because I think it's based on fundamental flaws, but their argument is that black people and certain minorities, whether sexual identity or what have you, have a hard time getting ahead. We need to do more to make sure that they are able to keep up because there are systemic barriers to their progress. This, however, completely denies any white man from applying to the job in a university, in a major field, in one of the top universities, I would say, in North America when it comes to AI and tech, because a lot of people from Waterloo, they actually disseminate into San Fran, Seattle, and a lot of these like different tech hubs, because they don't typically stay in Canada. A lot of people drain into America. And that university is allowed to get away with just flat out discrimination against white men or people who self-identify as white men. Like, that's it. That's the whole story. That's it. You can read it for yourself. Like, I linked everything in a Substack. Everyone is welcome to go. This job ad is still up here. Okay. It's just, to me, it is mind-blowing that that one of the top universities in Canada is allowed to get away with this. Like, they felt no public backlash over this whatsoever. The news did not cover this when it came out. And because this posting is several months old. I'm actually surprised that it's still up, to be quite honest with you. But no public outrage. No question as to why white men are uniquely eliminated from this category of being hired. Like, no explanation. Nothing. And these people are funded by taxpayer dollars that we pay for. So we are effectively funding their discrimination against anyone that isn't a woman, transgender, gender fluid, non-binary, two-spirit, or member of a racialized community, which means anyone white. in a country where 70% of the people, roughly speaking, are white. Very strange. Very, very, very strange and very disappointing indeed. I don't know. Just reading stories like this can be very disheartening sometimes because, like, this is actually open discrimination against anyone that doesn't fit into those categories. And nobody gives a shit. Nobody on the news is covering this. No politician is speaking out against this. Nobody. There's a couple of people on Twitter here and there that are trying to make a big stink of it, but nobody cares. This is just an open fact that you can hire exclusively anybody except straight white men. And you're defended legally in Canada. Yeah, very strange stuff. Very, very strange. There's another Substack article that I linked there. You're more than welcome to check it out for yourself. They have over 30 examples of all these various DEI programs happening across not only North America, but also Europe. And the point with all those examples is to illustrate just how far-reaching DEI is in its influence. Like, this is not, as I've shown you, this is not just limited to certain companies making private decisions against with like who they hire or the kind of programs that they have. This goes as far as the United States scientific government body. It goes to every Canadian government body, as I mentioned earlier with that program. It goes to the public schools. It goes to the places where healthcare is dealt with, whether it's training the doctors or actually where the doctors work themselves. This affects every single strata of society. Just about every single institution is in one way, shape, or form affected by this. And it is not limited to urban centers. As I showed you earlier, if you live in a small town and you don't celebrate a certain holiday, the government, at least here in Canada, can openly sue you for not celebrating it, for not celebrating Pride. So it doesn't matter where you live, at least in Canada, because there will be legal repercussions if you do not abide by DEI principles or if you don't embrace these ideals, which is unsettling, to say the least. Because what I want my government to do, besides leaving me the fuck alone, is to keep me safe, make sure that there's no trouble at the borders, that we're letting in the right people that will be productive citizens, and that aim to be better and to want better for themselves and their families. I want the government to be able to make sure that I have the lights on. I want the government to make sure that I have running water, that I'm able to feel safe in my community, that everyone should have these opportunities to feel safe in the community, that if you fall, whether it's financially or you have an issue with narcotics, that there is a system to help people. That's what I want a government to do. I want a government to be able to maintain just the most minimum levels of sustainable life for people, to help people when they need it. That's all that's all I want, like, my government to do. I don't want my government to tell me that, oh, if you want to work this job in Waterloo, sorry, no can do, because you're white and a man. Doesn't matter about your qualifications, doesn't matter if you're a great fit for the job, doesn't matter what kind of certification or intellect you have, you can't apply. And that's just one of the many examples that I've mentioned here. And like I said, by all means, check out the Substack article. I link it in my post there. It talks about just how pervasive all of this is. And this is just in North America. This is barely touching what's happening in Europe. Right. And as I said earlier, with all these DEI programs, what happens to all these systems when they start lowering their standards to let more of these people in? To let more of the people that would otherwise fail or not be able to get in because they don't have the qualifications? What happens to the legal system? when the bar exam standards get lowered? What happens to our healthcare system when these standards get lowered? What happens to the quality of education when these standards get lowered? What happens to our society as a whole when we begin to prioritize personal identity over your personal ability just so that we don't offend people? You know, there's a name for this idea. It's called the soft bigotry of low expectations. Because that's what it is. And all of these programs, they circle around this idea that because these people, like certain people, aren't able to make it or to meet these qualifications and standards, that we have to lower these standards to let them in. That's bigoted. Like, that in itself is a bigoted way to think, because it comes across from this place that you don't think they're capable, that you don't think they're smart enough, that you don't think that they're able to, with enough assistance from fucking tutors or from what have you. That no matter what, it's an insurmountable obstacle unless you lower the standards. That's bigoted. You know, because the correct course of action in that case is to better understand, why is it that individual can't get ahead? Do they need more time to study? Do they need more access to resources? Is there any way we can facilitate that? No. The instinct instead for DEI is to lower the standards for everyone so that more people can get let in, so that they can tick off on their box that they are not racist, so that they can virtue signal to everyone around them that look at how proud we are of our education system. We have more black graduates than ever. We have more racialized minorities in classes attending than any other time before. Yes, but what did that come as a result of? That came as a result of you lowering the standards. And that's just the education system. Right? Like, once again, the healthcare system is affected by this. The judicial system is affected by this. All of these things that we all rely on. What happens in 10 years if this course is not corrected? What happens to the standard and quality of life that we all enjoy right now when all these grades and qualifications are altered? Doesn't look good to me. Like, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't see the future, right? Like, I'm not a prophet, nor do I pretend to be. But just from my basic understanding, like, when you lower standards, whatever service or product you're offering, it turns to shit. It turns to shit every fucking time, without fail. Or at least the quality degrades. Like, Jesus Christ, it's the difference. Like, the simplest analogy is going to McDonald's versus going to like just making a burger at home. McDonald's whole thing is about automation. It's about getting the most amount of burgers out at the same, like, at a time. So when you break open that box and you see the patties half slid over, half of the ingredients are missing. Like, it's not nearly the same as actually having quality and standards. And that McDonald's burger thing, that's a bad analogy. But just the simple idea that lowering the standards within these programs to allow more people to participate, to me, is laughable. Not only is it laughable, but it is disrespectful to every single person that was a part of that minority group that they're trying to help, that did it without all that help, that actually persevered, put their head down, worked, and got through it. Like, can you imagine, like, being at the top of your class, or at least, like, doing good enough to pass 1 year, and then next thing you know, like, that thing that you strived and struggled and worked so hard to attain, that the next year the standards get changed, and now, like, you could have passed if you put in half the work that you did? Like, it's just, it is such a disservice to everyone involved for solutions like that to become commonplace. For solutions like that to not only be commonplace, but to become celebrated as anti-racist and progressive ideas, when in reality, you're only making it harder for those people to get through life. Because, like, for anyone that's like in their early 20s or whatever in the audience, you know, it's one thing for you to fail on an assignment or to be late in handing it into your professor and for people to be lenient with you like that in university. Once you get out of that system, if you fail, if you don't deliver on time, if your job requires a certain amount of quality from you and you're not able to meet it, you get fired. You get fired. And you can get fired for any number of reasons. Here in Canada, at least, it's a little bit harder to fire people because at least in Ontario, we have a system where if you pass the 3-month probation period, so if you're at a job for at least 3 months, the only way that you can be fired is if you are derelict of your duties, if you don't do as you're asked, as long as it fits within your job description, if you're consistently late, if the employer has shown some kind of grace in terms of trying to help you with whatever it is that you're struggling with at work, and if that still fails and you're not able to rise to the occasion, then yeah, they have a reason to fire you. In America, it's a little bit different because from my understanding in America, they can fire you at any point, at any time, with no recourse, and there's little to no that you can do about it. I don't know for certain, but that is what I've heard from people that I've talked to over the years. That's the way the real world works. That's basically how the world works. The moment that you get out of university, this whole safe bubble of the public education system, the moment that you get out of that, if you fuck up enough times, or even once, in a significant enough way, you're canned. You're shown the door. That's it. Goodbye. That's it. There's no forgiveness. There's no, oh my God, I was having a really hard time, or I'm just depressed. No, they don't give a shit. They don't care. They do not care. Your employers do not give a shit about you. Unless you literally work for your best friend, okay? Your employer does not give a shit about you. And if they can find a more efficient and more cost-effective way of delivering on their service or product without you getting in the way, they will do it. They will automate you. They will replace you. They will find someone more qualified that will work for less money. Employers do not give a shit. That is how the world works. They don't care. They have a business to run. Their priority is on making money and making sure that the lights stay on. They will not hesitate to fire people if they do not fit their qualifications that they are requiring. Right, so what happens if somebody has gone through these DEI programs, who has skated by on all these lowering of requirements? What happens to that person when they're faced with a problem like that? What happens to that person when they go out into the real world and now they're in a place where they can just be let go because of their misgivings or their inability to do the work? I don't know. I don't know what happens, but it can't be good. I don't think that life hitting you at 26 after coming out of the public education system, thinking that you could just skate by on the most minimal grades, like, those people don't tend to do well. And I'm not even saying that, like, oh, this pipeline of you have to do really well in school and then do really well in university and then you have to do really well in your job and that's what it means to be a successful person. No, I am not making that case whatsoever. Chances are, in this day and age, like, more people than not, I would argue, would actually be better off like out of high school, either starting a business or working for themselves, because this path is no longer nearly as sustainable as it used to be for the previous generation. But that's a whole other conversation at another time. But regardless, right, if you're not able to deal with the adversity of life and you've skated by because people thought that in order to be more inclusive, they had to lower the standards for you to get through, that is a very, very difficult place to put someone into as they're entering their 30s. And not only is it a difficult place for that person, because that's a lot to deal with, right? Like, how many of these students are actually asking for these programs? How many of these students are actually asking for the standards to be lowered? These people are just, they're just going along with it. We're all too busy in our own 9-to-5s, in our own bullshit, in our own family struggles, what have you. We're too busy to look up and to look around and think, oh shit, this program that I'm a part of is actually, it's impacting, you know, my situation in such and such a way. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I'm just saying that kind of level of consideration, it's not something that is really, at least from my understanding, I didn't really think about that when I was going to university. When I was going to university, I just wanted to pass. Me personally, I just wanted to pass. I just wanted to get ahead, to finish school, to just get out of that system and to start doing my own thing. But if this next generation of workers is going to be coming in with the perspective that if you're not doing well, it's because somebody above you is pushing down on your neck with the heel of racism, with the heel of exclusionary behaviors, I don't see that as a sustainable story. Right? Going back to the idea of stories, if the story that we are telling people now, or at least the story that DEI is trying to tell people, is that systemic racism still exists in North America, that black people and racialized people are getting discriminated against actively to this day, like almost to the same extent as they were 100 years ago. If anybody is making that claim that we are still a white supremacist colonial society, if that is the story that they are telling, then that story offers no solutions. It makes the person into a victim. It makes them into a victim of circumstance. It makes them see the world as a non-stop onslaught of bigotry and hate that is barreling toward them, and that they have to be on the lookout for any hint of racism, sexism, or homophobia at every single corner. If I was told that story growing up, and if I truly believed it, that would make me one hell of an anxious person. That would make me a very anxious person, and that would make me very wary of any forces that are just out of my sight. That would make me think that just about at every turn, anytime I had a negative interaction with someone, it was because of some racial or sexual identity. It would mean that there's a disconnect between your fundamental understanding of the world. Because the DEI idea of the world is that these systems still exist, colonialism still exists, racism still exists, and it's this huge, all-encompassing force bearing down on all these people. When in reality, that could not be further from the truth. Did we not just have an election where Kamala, however the fuck you say her name, did we not just have an election where she ran to be president of the United States? How can you possibly say that we live in such an exclusionary society to racialized people when someone like that is allowed to run for office? Not allowed, but is able to run for office. They elected Obama twice. Here in Canada, one of the major heads of the party, his name is Jagmeet Singh. He is a minority. And he's the leader of a political party. Why would people choose these leaders if we live in such a racist time? Some of the richest people in North America come from these communities. Ellen DeGeneres just fucking picked up and went to the UK because she could afford it. Famous lesbian. Like, that's not to say that these people didn't face adversity or that these people didn't face some discrimination, but like, what are you gonna do? Are you going to invade the minds of every single person to try to understand where these racist thoughts or actions are coming from? Because that's essentially what it would take, is so that you had some kind of direct link into their brains and understood every single decision that they made. But that's not possible. So it's very strange to make this observation in a land that has some of the richest minorities in all of the world. They live here. They come here to start businesses, to have better lives for their families. North America is a land of opportunity. That's the story that I'm more interested in the story that says, yes, we have to accept the fact that history was not kind to these people. And not history, but that people in the past were not kind to these people. And not kind that's putting it lightly, okay? With all the lynchings and the sundown laws and the race riots, the residential schools here in Canada. I mean, all these things happened. There was an active force of discrimination against these people for the longest time, up until the turn of the 20th century. Sorry, the turn of the 21st century. Like, there's no denying that there was outstanding, just plain, open-air discrimination against a plethora of people. And women, too, for the longest time. Obviously, there's no denying that. Anybody that has read even the most basic of history books can tell you that. Anybody that has gone through even the most basic of history classes in school can tell you that. And yet, we have risen to the occasion. See, the beauty of America that I think doesn't get celebrated enough is not that it's a perfect country, is not that it is without any faults. The beauty in America is that they have a standard that they aspire to. The beauty in America is that even though at the time when they wrote the Declaration of Independence, that all men are created equal, they had slaves. The men that wrote that, they had slaves, as they said that. And from my understanding of it is that they wrote it as an ideal to aspire to, so that even though in that moment they could not, right, they couldn't just wake up the next day and expect the entire society to change because this act was wrong and absolutely morally reprehensible and essentially torture to so many people. They knew that at least if they set the ideal into stone, that if they had something to strive towards, a better tomorrow, that one day these people could be free, that they would be able to use their words against the government and to say, hey, you declared that all men are equal, and we are not being treated as equal, and we want that equal treatment. And that's exactly what's been happening, especially since the 60s. And it continues to go on, except now the version of it that we see playing out in DEI, right? Now what we see is a perverted echo of that idea. Because now it's going into the area of course correction that is trying to overcorrect for a problem that doesn't exist. I mean, how many times have we seen in the news of these hoaxes of hate come out? I mean, the most famous one. The most famous of one was Jussie Smollett. Right? We all remember Jussie Smollett. The absolute fucking clown that on a wintry night in Chicago went out for a Subway sandwich and said that he got attacked by two MAGA-wearing Republicans who turned out to be actors that he hired. Like, he staged the attack. And yet, everybody was talking about, oh my god, Jussie Smollett, holy shit, unbelievable. How could this happen? He got hate crimed. Here we go. Here's Kamala Harris talking about this exact case.
Which tweet? What tweet?
About saying that it is a modern day lynching that.
Sorry.
Yes, Jussie Smollett.
Okay, so I will say this about that case. I think that the facts are still unfolding, and
the facts are still unfolding. She was so ready. Whoops, sorry, wrong music. That's gonna get me copyright stricken. She was more than happy to say that it was a modern day lynching, and then when the facts came out that Jussie Smollett had staged the attack, we gotta wait for the facts to come out. We gotta wait for the facts to come out. That's Jesse Smollett. Let's remember Bubba Wallace, the NASCAR driver. This is a good one. They quote unquote found a noose, which ended up just being a piece of rope in his garage.
So what are you saying here? Are you saying that you don't believe? Do you believe that it was intended for you in that way, or are you? What are you saying here?
It was a noose. It was a noose that was whether tied in 2019 or whatever. It was a noose. So it wasn't directed at me, but somebody tied a noose. That's what I am saying. It is a noose.
Yeah. Let me just read from NASCAR here.
Interesting. And then when it came out that it wasn't a noose and that it was just literally just a piece of rope in the garage that was hanging off the door, nope, nobody wanted to cover that. Right. So my point with those two examples, right? Those are just among the two. Is that it seems as though a lot of people are really digging hard to find examples of discrimination where it doesn't exist. And fine, like, if you want to make the argument that there's plenty of real cases of discrimination and all that, yes, I will gladly stand right beside you and fucking shout that shit down. Because that's not right. Nobody should be discriminated on the basis of race or their personal identity. We've moved past that. We're trying to move past that. In any productive society, you would want the citizens to move past something like that, and you would want people to be in agreement with that, which I would think just about every rational person is. Every person that doesn't hold hate in their heart for a certain identity group would be for that kind of policy that says, hey, we should all have equal access to opportunity, or at least do our best to make it so that as many people as possible have equal access to opportunities. Like, I'm of the mind that most people are actually not racist. I'm of the mind that most people are actually not sexist or homophobic. I believe in the story of North America as a land of opportunity because that's exactly what my parents believed when we came here. Like, I immigrated here when I was a kid. My parents brought us over here, and we wanted to go to America initially, but we came to Canada instead. I forget the reasoning why, but we came here seeking opportunity, and as a result, we've benefited from it. My mom worked so fucking hard to put us kids through. She did everything she could because she believed in the immigrant mentality. She believed in the Canadian dream. That we believed that this place was accepting to all, as long as you put in the work. As long as you wanted to participate in society and be a good citizen, you would be accepted. And that is the story that I believe in, that I think we should strive towards building here in North America. And I think it's still true. Like I said, there are millions of people streaming across the borders. Millions of people upon millions. Every single year, more and more and more are streaming across the borders because that story is so powerful that if you come to North America, you can make it. Fuck it. Beyonce wrote a song about New York with Jay-Z saying if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. That's the American dream. Does that mean that the American dream or the Canadian dream is without fault? Does that mean that it's perfect? Does that mean that you'll never encounter a single racist, sexist, or exclusionary person when you're here? Of course not. Of course not. Discrimination happens everywhere. But here, the laws state that it's illegal to discriminate based on those categories. Here, we believe in celebrating our shared identities. Here, we believe in the embracing of people that are gay, that are trans, that are bi, that are whatever the fuck. We don't care. The average person doesn't give a shit. They don't care. They really don't. Most of these things do not matter as much as the media wants them to matter. These things do not matter. They don't. Nobody is hiring openly against racial lines. And if they are, then they should be shouted down. I will gladly stand right beside those people and shout them down, because that's not right. We are trying to build a better society, a society that can build the technologies and develop cultures that will lead humanity to prosperity. That's what we should all desire. And this idea that we can make up for the past of slavery or all these exclusionary policies of the past by being exclusionary now against certain groups is ridiculous. And that's not even me saying that. That's Ibram X. Kendi saying that. And Ibram X. Kendi, for those that don't know, he's also a famous DEI grifter. He's someone that has made millions off of this. He's written plenty of books. He's done tons of speaking tours. Here's a quote straight from him. The only remedy to racist discrimination is anti-racist discrimination. The only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. The only remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination. So this man, right, who's a thought leader in the DEI movement, says that in order to fix the discriminations of the past, we must discriminate in the present and in the future. What the fuck? What does that even mean? What past? What people are still alive that are here from the days of slavery? How many of those people live in homes that are multiracial now? To what extent can you really isolate an individual's identity to say that their ancestors were wronged against, and therefore now we have to right that wrong by discriminating against other people? How does that argument work? I don't understand. That's very strange. How can you say something like that? How can you say something like that and then believe it? It's very strange. And for anyone that isn't familiar, yeah. What is Ibram X. Kendi's net worth? How much does he charge in speaking fees? I don't think it'll actually give us his net worth because he's a very private individual from what I understand. Yeah, so there's, yeah. According to this, he's earned over $300,000 in speaking fees alone. In 2017, $5,000 for a 45-minute speech, $10,000 at Western Michigan University in 2019, and in 2020, $20,000 for a 1-hour speech. Okay, so this guy makes a living off of DEI. He goes around the country, in a country that he believes is systemically racist against people like him, and he profits off the fact that he gets to tell people just how racist they are. If that's not evidence of how open American society is, then I don't know what is. You want to tell me that it's possible for these two things to be true? That America is fundamentally racist and white supremacist to its core, that they are extremely exclusionary, and people openly discriminate against one another, and that, two, a black man could tour the country, earn thousands in speaking fees, publish books that go into libraries, and teach his philosophy to people, and make a living off of it, while being black. How do those two visions of America fit together? I don't understand. If America is so exclusionary, then how did a black man get to a position where he can make thousands off of speaking fees? It's just very strange. I find that very strange. That you can hold those two ideas together. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't think it is. I think a lot of people share my sentiment that they're tired of getting this shit shoved down their throats, that they're tired of seeing this on every news channel, that they're tired of seeing this displayed in the media that they watch. I think a lot of people are just tired. They're sick and tired of hearing this. And don't take my word for it, okay? These same companies that I mentioned here, they turned tail. They decided that this was no longer a sustainable strategy in order to continue operating in the market. These companies, Walmart, who hires the most Americans out of any other company within the single strongest economical force in the world, I would argue, the most culturally dominant force in the world, I would argue, and militarily. Okay, America has been dominating for fucking decades now in a lot of different areas. And even their businesses are turning against it. Because they know that their customers are not going to stand for this. As was shown with Bud Light, how their market share just completely tanked after the Dylan Mulvaney scandal. Or any of these brands that are getting caught up in this DEI shit. They are now starting to learn that this is not a sustainable strategy, that you can't just keep preaching to people and forcing your workers to go through these training sessions where they are told that being white means that you're automatically racist, that people still experience similar, if not worse, levels of racism as they did in the 1960s and 50s. All these ideas of North America being an inherently racist nation. Like, they are tired of it. People are tired of being talked down to. And I would even argue, okay, that I bet a lot of minorities are tired of this shit too. Because I bet a lot of them, at least the ones that are successful, I would wager, the ones that actually got through and made something of themselves and are now at the top of the top of the top of their game, they didn't need these initiatives. They didn't need DEI. They did it of their own volition, of their own work. And to place this victim mentality into people, it's self-defeating. Not only in the people, but in the nation where this happens. Also, no fucking way. Bitcoin is over 101k? No way, dude. Fuck out of here. Hold on, there's a little side note here. Got a message from Matt. No fucking way Bitcoin reached 101. Holy shit. I should have bought. No fucking way. Insane. What a time to be alive, man. What a time to be alive. DEI is dying with a capital D and Bitcoin hits 102k. Let's fucking go, boys. We're fucking back. We are so back, it's not even funny. We're so fucking back. We're gonna win so much that we're gonna get tired of winning. Let's fucking go, boys. That's awesome. Oh, you'd love to see it. In any case, I'm wondering if there's anything else that I missed, because I'll probably want to end off the stream. Unless anyone in the chat got any other questions. Dallas, look, whatever disagreements you might have with me on all this stuff, by all means, read the Substack that I wrote, read all the sources that I went through. If you still disagree with me, hey man, that's your right. I'm not here to convince you. I'm just here to record a show. I'm here to dish out some white pills. And if you can't find any white pills here, maybe somewhere down the line you'll listen to an episode that will. Because I have a feeling we just have some fundamental disagreements about this issue, and that's fine. The beauty of this nation, about North America, Canada, and America, is that you're free to disagree. By all means. And I love it. I love this nation. It has given me every advantage and opportunity that I have in my life. There's plenty wrong with it that still needs to be corrected, and I'm sure my brothers down south can attest to that too. That our nations are not perfect, and that there is still plenty work to be done. But I know for a fact that there are plenty of people out there that are putting in the work. People that don't care for this DEI bullshit. People that don't care for these progressive programs that are essentially just virtue signaling to people that if you believe in these things that you're somehow woke or you're better understanding of the struggles that these people face, which is absolutely disrespectful. Because to me, what it comes across as is that they're just using these people as tokens. They're using these people to say, wow, look at us, we hired more black people, we're not racist. Hiring more black people means you're not racist? What? How do you know that? How do you know which of your employees still don't harbor racist ideals? Just because they don't act on it, it means that they're not racist? I don't understand that. How is it anti-racist to lower the graduation requirements for high schoolers? I'm very confused as to how that is in any way benefiting the communities that they are saying that it would help. How does lowering education standards help with that? I don't buy that story. The story that I buy into is that North America can be great. Is that we can be a bastion of Western liberal democracy. That we can build great things and that we can become great people if we put enough work in. That's the story that I want to believe. That's a story that I want to share with people. That it is possible to get ahead despite adversity. That it is possible to get ahead despite the struggle. To me, that's a much more enticing story. To me, that's a much more attractive story and one that I think is a lot more productive. Because I don't want to see myself as a victim. I don't want to see myself as a victim of circumstance. I want to see myself as a capable individual that is able to overcome struggle. That's what I would want to see. And that's the kind of story that I want to push for. That's why I'm doing this Whitepill project. That's why I'm taking the time to record these podcasts. I want to put that story out there because I know a lot of people could not only benefit from that story of hearing of how others overcome adversity or that it's possible to overcome all these challenges and become successful. And I think that really is the only way to move forward. We cannot evolve or continue to evolve as a society that has to deal with problems like AI or nuclear war or a climate change or as a climate crisis as they call it, right? Or automation or UBI, universal basic income. Right? We have so many struggles and conflicts ahead of us that we can't even predict. What the fuck is AI going to look like? All right? Like, what is AGI going to look like? How is it going to affect the landscape of the marketplace once enough people get fired due to automation? What happens when all these truckers and delivery men and people that are doing basic remedial tasks, what happens when robots take their place? I don't know. But I sure as hell would hope that the society that has to deal with those issues does not focus on race or any sexual identity as an immutable quality that reflects your ability or your aptitude to succeed. I would hope that a society that is able to deal with all those colossal issues is able to see past those characteristics and qualities over which people have no control over, these life conditions that they're born into. I would hope that to live in a society that is able to take those challenges head on and tell its people that we will persevere, that we are not victims, that we are the captains of our souls. That's the story that I want it told. That's the story. Also, Bitcoin just hit 103? No fucking way, Matt. Let me check that shit again. Appreciate the constant updates. Thank you. It says, oh, it hit 103 briefly, just for like a hot fucking second at 10:08, and then at 10:11 it dipped to 102. What is Coinbase saying? Oh, this is in Canadian. Don't get it twisted. This is Canadian. 102. It was a 103 previously. I did see it hit. I did see it hit 103. That's awesome. Yeah, no, Matt, you don't lie. You don't. I love your posts, man. I love seeing your shit on the timeline, bro. Keep it up. I love seeing your shit. And I appreciate that you came to listen to the stream. Usually I have a guest, so that it makes it easier to have a kind of like a dialogue and we just kind of riff each other on back and forth. Wasn't able to make it this time, but he hopefully will be able to make it to the next one. Yeah, I don't know what else can be said on this topic without me sounding like a broken record, which I feel like I have been for the last half hour. But look, all that blackpilling shit aside with the DEI stuff, the tide is turning. The tide is turning because corporations are moving away from it. Trump is coming into the presidency and he is going to smash DEI with a fucking hammer and scatter it to the winds, as it rightfully should be. And here in Canada, with the upcoming election next October, so in about 10 months' time or so, it looks like the Conservatives are going to win, and they are not friendly to DEI whatsoever. So, with any luck, this self-destructive story that people are victims of circumstance and that without government intervention they are not able to get ahead, hopefully will be just blown away. Will be eradicated and ridiculed, as it rightfully should be. Because ultimately in North America, like I've said fucking countless times so far this podcast, it is a golden land of opportunity that millions of people clamor for every single year throughout some of the most dangerous conditions. Okay, all those people going through the caravans through South America, paying cartels thousands of dollars just so that they have a chance to get into America, should tell you everything about just how valuable it is to be in a place like this. Out of all the places to be born in the world, got lucky enough to be here. Or to have your parents to bring you over here. And I think that story is a lot more enticing and a lot more effective at getting us to progress towards the next stage of civilization. A lot more understanding of the actual human condition. Yeah, and I guess that's all I want to say on that. In any case, so next week, tune in at the same time, roughly. Should be around like 6 or 7 p.m. Eastern. I usually post beforehand. Yeah, Matt. I think the trillions probably went into Bitcoin mining. In any case, thank you everyone for listening to this. If you want to read more of my posts, you can go on the Whitepill Substack, wh1tepilled.substack.com. It's Whitepill spelled with a 1 instead of the I. I have posts every week. I don't know what I'll be covering next week, but I'm sure it'll be something good. Once again, thanks for everyone for watching, and have yourselves a lovely night. And I hope that Bitcoin fucking hits 110K. Oh, looks like it went back up to 103. Let's fucking go. All right, guys. Have yourself a good night. Thank you for tuning in. See you guys next week.